Welcome back to the United States of America, everybody. I am one of your two co-hosts here, three-time Mr. Natural Olympia, two-time Mr. Universe, and amateur shitty power lifter Brandon Lirio, here with my always lovely co-host, figure pro in the PNBA, Layla Pollock. Say hi to everybody at home, Layla.
Hi, everybody at home.
I'm here right now to tell you that we here at the United States of America are against hustle culture.
Fuck, we are.
Now, see, I follow your Instagram because I want to listen to you and I like your perspective on things. So I knew when I said I'm anti-hustle culture that for sure you were going to be like, no, fuck that.
Not gonna go over well.
Well, I wouldn't even say well. I mean, it's okay to have reasonable discourse, but I'm letting you run the show today, man. Tell me what you think about hustle culture then, if you're so pro hustle culture.
I feel the reason that I'm so pro hustle culture, and I understand what you're saying when you say that it's dangerous and it forces people into thinking that we don't take any rest days and you have to grind until you drop. But I feel like the truth is, as a blanket statement, more people could afford to hustle a little bit harder and they're gonna be just fine. Nobody really genuinely is gonna hustle so hard that they're gonna fall apart. You know?
Yeah, I mean, so like when you think about it, especially as it relates to hustle culture today, right? Nowadays, more than ever, it's like, oh, I work a full-time job and then I come home and kiss my kids and go to bed. And then right after I work out, I do 6 hours of an online business on Chinese time and stuff like that. I guess my question to you would be, right? Our version as you see it of hustle culture in terms of us being athletes, right? Is full-time job. Yes, I have my side hustle. For me, it's obviously whether it be in-person training or online training, they're kind of equal at this point. And then, my lifting career as it relates to videos and podcasts and all this other stuff. And then I have my family. For you, full-time job, you have a relationship, you're trying to get your brand off the ground, you're also competing. I feel like our version of hustle culture is what 10 years ago would have been like, damn, that's a lot of stuff to do. I think the hustle culture that I'm more against nowadays is when people are like, yes, I'll sleep when I'm dead 7 days a week. I'm doing 40 hours of work every single day. Like,
Right.
there's no way you can do your best work that way. There's
You know
no
what,
way.
you know what you also can't do? Drink rosé all day. But you don't see anybody up in arms about the rosé all day campaign. Like, it's a fucking vibe, okay? And between the two, drinking rosé in a 24-hour nonstop period or working in a nonstop hour period, which one of those will actually kill you?
Yeah, I mean, no, I fully understand what I don't know. I think with that,
It's
it's
a
like,
fucking vibe. Like, work a little bit fucking harder, maybe work until you can't work anymore and see what that's like. Cause I sure as shit guarantee you've drank until you drop before. Ain't
I,
nobody up
I
in arms about that.
I definitely don't do it anymore, but I used to,
You
man.
know
But here's the thing, right? Like, I I guess for me, I know that I've always said as it relates to every argument that the two sides of the argument are always going to yell the loudest, right? That no matter what, the people who are yelling are the ones who have a point to make, whether it be positive or negative. We're on one side in terms of hustle culture. And then I would argue that the people you're referring to are the anti-hustle cultures, that it's like, I believe that whatever comes my way is just going to come my way. I don't know. I would argue that the middle ground there's probably a lot more people in the middle than either side, that you could like go a little bit left of center in terms of being where you are and still wind up getting enough rest, getting enough recovery, R&R days, leaving your phone off so that nobody can reach you kind of shit. Like, I don't know. Don't you feel like, especially since we've chatted back and forth about this, like, do you not feel like every once in a while you could use 2 days where nobody can get at you and you're just like, I'm in the mountains of Maine, go fuck yourself?
Yeah, I do, but I feel like that doesn't take away from my hustle culture. That just I hustle in a different way. Like, if I'm not talking to people, I'm gonna do some more chores. Like, I fill in the gaps. Like, I am honestly like a shark. Like, I never stop moving.
So is that what it is for you? Is just you can't stop moving?
I really don't. Like, I don't. For example, I got clocked on the podcast recently for eating on the podcast. You know why?
Hilarious, yeah.
I didn't know that wasn't professional because I don't listen to podcasts. I don't scroll reels. I don't look at Instagram. I don't know how to use a TV. Like, I don't do any of that stuff. And I don't think people realize, like, if you get to know me in person, I really don't operate like a normal human being. Like, I don't really participate in a lot of the cultural shit that goes on. Like, for example, how many names you've referenced over the course of the podcast. I don't if you watch the playback, every single time you do it, I go like this.
I guess then, so then for that question, right? Like, let's double it back this way then and say, I guess for you, as opposed to what Instagram and YouTube would consider hustle culture, is a little different. In the sense of your hustle culture is real, like, I need to be doing, my hustle is just not stopping moving because time, I can be productive, right?
Yeah, it's important to me as a human being to always be productive. So right. I didn't think we'd arrive here this quickly, but yeah, what I reasoned in my head was like, I think hustle culture can be a really healthy thing for somebody if they are putting that hustle into something that they genuinely enjoy doing. Now, if you're force feeding yourself something you don't respond to, like going to the gym 7 days a week and you hate it, that's just going to kill you.
Have you found people that, because I know I have, you found people that are like, oh, this is just the way I operate, this is my hustle culture, and you're looking at them like, dude, you're being less than productive because you're trying to fit this narrative of I have to keep moving or I have to do this, and it looks like you're producing less by doing it that way. Have you seen that in people? Like, I know that your circle is probably made up either a very small amount of people or people just like you, but in the same sense of like,
we're friends.
do you know stories about that where it's like, dude, you're only doing this hustle culture because you think you have to and you're not really producing anything of value?
I mean, I'm sure that I do. And if you gave me time to think about it, I'm sure I'd think of an example like, yes, of course, duh. And yeah, I do think that applies to the gym and people get burned out, especially when they're, starting out, like gun too hard and think they don't like it. And the truth is like, well, your body's just not going to adjust that quickly.
Right.
But honestly, I think people apply that a lot to everything, especially with like peer pressure. It's that whole like buying into something or force feeding yourself something you're really not responding to, but you think you have to do it or you think it's the right thing to do. Like even the whole script of like going off to college and getting married, like that honestly doesn't work for everybody, but a lot of people do it because they think it's what they have to do. Like that type of hustle wasn't what you were meant for. Like do something else.
If I went to college right after I got out of high school, I'd have flunked out the first semester. No questions asked. I needed to go to the military, have my ass kicked a little bit, see the world a little bit. And then I went back like 5 years after I graduated high school. And even then I started with online courses to kind of see, hey, do I even like this? Like, can I graduated high school with a 1.87 GPA. Not good.
Jesus.
But the reason is because my mom even says now. My mom says now, if we had the money, we would have sent you to one of those magnet schools because you just didn't want to be bothered with shit that was just, it was never going to be fruitful for you. To put it in example, I have never once needed to know how to do long division. I've never once needed to know, and by the way, I've always tested very high in English. I love writing papers. My mom's been a college professor my whole life. But I never need to know about the symbolism behind the Great Gatsby. I'm sure that there comes a time when I should know those things. But if we equate this back to hustle culture, we need to teach kids how to hustle in terms of their everyday lives again, in terms of how to take care of your car, how to take care of a house, how to, I don't want to say balance a checkbook. Nobody balances a checkbook anymore. But at least basic financial literacy, right?
There's a lot of essentials. Well, okay, but we could launch a whole nother segment here about how our educational system is fucked up on purpose to keep, class systems in place or whatever.
But I think that's what breeds the hustle culture. Is like, I got to get the fuck out of here. I got to get daddy out the ghetto type situation. You know what I mean? Where it almost is like, if I don't hustle this hard, I'm going to wind up just like the guy that's on Skid Row or whatever. And it's like, there's a vast amount of middle ground here, man. And I don't think a lot of people, what you said, you got to pick something you like. I don't think many people even know themselves enough to know what they like.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks and doing it in a hustle culture kind of way is a bad setup. But here we go. Layla forgets what she was going to say.
We were talking about picking something you like.
I got to get daddy out of the ghetto. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Well, I know, actually, let me ask you that, right? That's my perspective, where I take a look at how I grew up, and I tell people where I'm from in New York City, where I was born in the Bronx, and then I moved to a town called Spring Valley, which at one point was the murder capital of the United States. And it's not a nice place. It may not be now, but when I grew up there in the 90s, it was not a nice place to live. And so I think of like how my biological father, who's dead now, kept the house, and it was disgusting. And so when my house gets a little bit too gross, I'm like, dude, this is triggering me. Like, I gotta fucking clean this. I know that you live in an area like that now. Like, do you think that that helps in terms of you being like, that this is just a place for like a locker for me? My house is just to keep my shit so that I can go to work and produce for people and produce for myself. Like, do you find that to be not something that motivates you to get out of, but that you're like, no, I choose to live here because
I do choose to live here.
Yeah.
But the truth is, I make enough money to live in a very nice area. I do. I choose to live here on purpose for a couple of reasons. One, I find the people down here are much more real, because I've lived in a nice area, and for some reason, I always end up rubbing them the wrong way. Something I do is like, doesn't quite fit in. Like,
I've always said it's the hand tattoos that start it.
Yeah, I mean, I might be a little bit different looking.
Yeah.
You that can't see me, I'm tatted foot to toe. Foot to toe. That's it. I got very little tattoos.
That's it. 1 foot. 1 foot is tatted.
So, but yeah, I left my screen door open once in a really nice area, and a woman came, knocked on my door, and she's like, "Are you okay? Your screen," just like shit like that. I was like, "Lady,
Yeah,
this is what you have to talk about," and you're like, so yes, I live in a pretty rundown neighborhood, and part of that is because no one bothers you, no matter how fucking weird you are. You can be the weirdest piece of shit out here, and there's somebody that's a weirder piece of shit out here than I am.
That's my New York City mentality, man. Mind your fucking business.
It's a mind your fucking business kind of place out here. And if you don't, everyone down here has guns.
Yeah.
The other part of that is I do genuinely believe in, one, not surrounding yourself with luxury, because if you get used to that kind of lifestyle, and this is the other thing I always talk about, is like, I'm so used to suffering that when it hits real time, I don't even flinch. Like, that's my tagline, is like, I don't even flinch.
Yeah.
Because I'm so conditioned to it all the time. Like, and then the other part of that is a money thing, where I do believe it's important to live below your means. Do I make a lot of money? No. Do I have a lot of money? More than people that I know around me closely? Yeah. Because my rent is $1,000 for a 3-bedroom car garage Porsche yard. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I mean, I would argue that dials into the hustle culture, where it's like the maximum amount of hustle is getting the value for your dollar. And so if I live in this area and I could have at least a big place that's nice on the inside, I can make my luxury in terms of having a nice couch or a nice bed or whatever, but I don't need house taxes to be 28% and, whatever it may be, right?
Need to live in a nice area and have marble floors and shit like that. That doesn't actually do anything for me, except like take away my conditioning for less than favorable conditions. Which
do you ever think there'll become a time where you age out of that and you're like, I don't want to hustle anymore, I'm just going to be relaxed?
I mean, it's hard to answer, like, you never know where you're going to end up. Like, maybe I'll be this way for a really long time. Maybe I'll be this way forever. Maybe tomorrow I'm going to decide, fuck this, I don't even want to bodybuild anymore. Like, who fucking knows? You never know.
Listen, I'm sort of in that position right now where I'm trying to decide what I want to do here in bodybuilding and natural bodybuilding after some stuff behind the scenes happened. But
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. And I guess we can't do it right now in public. But yeah, I remember you mentioning
Hey,
that.
I'm an open book and they know it. I'm an open book and everybody knows it.
Everybody knows it? I don't know it.
What I mean is I don't censor myself based on, nobody knows. Like, unless it's a secret, like, I got a present for somebody, I don't want them to know. I actually told my wife this just the other day. My hustle culture is, you need to be able to be a person of your word. And if I'm on here,
great. Yes.
If I don't understand. And I have at times pussyfooted around telling people how I really feel just to make them accept the information as opposed to rear back at it.
An important skill is like, like, you really want to shut down your racist grandma at Thanksgiving and risk the whole thing going to shit? No.
Yeah, but I would. I'm entering my chaotic neutral phase of my life, where I'm leaning into, I'm just going to fucking say it because it's less time and less effort. And what I mean by that is, if someone asks me a question nowadays about what I feel, I mean, even in my own federation, I feel it's great. I still think we're the best natural tested. There's been some some arguments behind the scenes in terms of how all of natural bodybuilding is going. Take a look at the WBFF, take a look at the OCB, take a look at the INBA, PNBA. There's a lot of people.
You can say those things to me. I don't have any idea what's going on. None, not a clue. I don't pay attention to anything.
In the 10 seconds, the easiest way to say it is the WBFF basically has admitted that they never kept scorecards. There's huge issues with the fact that some of their pro champions from their world championship were seen out at 3 a.m. at a Katy Perry concert with the owner's daughter. And then the next day they all happened to win their pro titles. And so people are like, if I knew that I had to compete the next day and that I wasn't assured a victory, there's no way I would go out and do that. And then there's some weird other stuff where like Paul Dillette had some weird pay-to-play porny website in the 90s with some of the competitors. And there's just a ton of stuff where some text messages came out where he was basically asking his PR and editing guy to make some of the girls' boobs bigger and their legs smaller and whatever, even though these were his champions. Then the OCB had a weird death with Matt Shepley, who's one of their main promoters, and they don't want to talk about it. But they also, anytime anyone asks them about it or asks them about their testing standards, boom, they block them. I'm blocked from the OCB's main page, even though I bring athletes to the OCB very regularly. That always makes me laugh.
I don't know if this has anything to do with hustle culture, but blocking is a bullshit fucking move. Try blocking somebody in real life. See how that works for you.
Well,
I'm used to doing that.
I'm dialing it right back into hustle culture. The reason they blocked me and is because my hustle culture relates to say what you got to say and get out fast. And because of that, some people don't like it. I always thought the INBA was going to
like it.
What's that?
No, of course people don't like it. Nobody likes the truth. The truth will piss you off.
But I always thought that
just leave it right there. Like it just pisses you off. It doesn't set you free. It just pisses you off.
But I always thought, right, that let's say I'll dial it back now to my issues with, my own federation was that there was nothing officially in writing. But I was leaning toward becoming a higher figurehead in the organization. And they decided after kind of loosely handshake deal sort of thing, going like, oh, we don't believe anymore that it's a full-time job and we don't need as much help as you're able to give. And they pitched me an offer that not only was low, it was an insult as far as I was concerned. So I pushed it off. And that's why I'm bringing this into this podcast in terms of hustle culture is my wife even said like, listen, hear them out. Maybe. And I was like, no, like my kids are now old enough to know when I'm home and when I'm not home. I'm old enough to know when I'm pushing things to, burn the candle at both ends to the point where I'm not producing my best work for my clients. I'm not producing the most healthy work for myself. And I was like, no, if it's not the original offer or better, I believe all of these things need to be helped and fixed. And you somehow now don't believe that they're a problem, then you deal with it. And I kind of just stepped back. And so I'm still an advocate for those athletes. I'm still an advocate for natural bodybuilding. And obviously, I still believe that my federation that I've married over the last, 10 years or so is the best at doing what we do. But like every other federation now, the times are changing. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with this hustle culture of be the best all the time, produce your best work. And I don't know that the direction of where federations and natural bodybuilding are going are able to integrate with hustle culture like that, where everyone is going to go, yes, this is conducive. So that leads me to ask you, because we've said before on this podcast in terms of what we feel, natural bodybuilding needs to do to compete with untested bodybuilding and just sports in general. Do you believe that at some point, as you have done your version of hustling, that at any point in time you had to step back and go, this is producing less than favorable results. I'm hustling too much.
I feel like we just saw that happen recently. Is that why you're asking me this?
Honestly, I never bait people into questions, but do you feel that way?
So, God, there were so many things I wanted to say, and then you always pop a question at me. Okay, so yes, recently I did what I would call hustling by doing all the things that make my blood flow in reverse. So I hustled in the wrong fucking direction. Like they say, in order to excel at anything, what you need to do is put your effort, energy, time, resources, all of that shit into something that requires from you minimal effort. Because then you're just going to do it naturally and you're going to do it well because it's something you like to do and you're just going to like over consume it.
Right.
I'm really good at that in very certain specific ways. I'm not good with that when it comes to talking. Hi, have you guys noticed? And people, like, I'm just not good at that type of thing. And that is what I've been pummeling myself with, trying to like kind of get myself off the ground.
Yeah.
I think I think it's working backwards for me because it's not who I am. And you know, they always say like what you put out is what you're going to get back, and I do very much feel like as far as my art goes, it's ruining my art because you can feel it. I feel like you can feel it in my posts, like you can kind of tell something's a little off.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So this what I was going to say about the I got to hustle to get dad out of the ghetto thing.
Yeah.
I think a mistake a lot of people make, and maybe this is the mistake I was making as well, is one, you can hustle by doing the wrong set of things and burn yourself out that way. And two, the amount of work you put into something does not necessarily equal productivity. You could work really, really hard and produce nothing. You know, you have to be productive. You can't just work constantly.
Yeah.
So
now, funny enough, right? You live in an area that would be considered socioeconomically depressed, right?
Some glass busted out on the street from the SWAT team the other day.
You know, so let me ask you then, because I know that the fitness industry tends to lean hard toward pick yourself up by your bootstraps, right?
It does. It very much.
Do you as yourself believe that everybody has in our country right now as it stands the exact same opportunity to advance themselves with that hustle culture? Like if you do what you do and I were to adapt what you did, that no matter what, if I find the thing I'm good at, for sure it's going to produce and I will be successful.
If I understand the question correctly, I feel like that falls into the whole, like, you can do anything you set your mind to, which
exactly right.
Right?
But
like,
do you believe that?
No, I don't believe that.
Okay. Why not?
Because again, just because you work really hard at something doesn't mean it's going to work out for you. Like, hard work can only get you so damn far. There are other factors, you know?
Okay.
There are other things. Yeah. Socioeconomic status or your natural talent, or honestly, if it's a really competitive or saturated industry and somebody out there is just better than you, they might not even have to work as hard and they will still fucking trounce you. Like, the world is a vicious place. Mother Nature is brutal. It's not personal. Yeah, you can work really hard, but it's not always going to work out.
Well, the reason I asked that is just like I have always said that the fitness industry is just the island of misfit toys, where like the reason you get so into fitness culture is whether it be a vice or an outlet or whatever it may be, right? Or like we see it, something that can be capitalized on where we actually enjoy it and we're trying to create wealth and create a new sense of what it means to be in the fitness industry. The difficult thing for me is like I also know that it's the same thing with bodybuilding, right? I know that not everybody is going to be able to do this like it's their second job. I was very fortunate to start when I was in the military where no matter what, every 2 weeks I was getting paid. I had to show up to work, but they would let me go to the gym on shift. I would be able to get PT waivers where I could work out by myself. And usually it was always as soon as you start in the military, you get 30 days paid vacation every year. And if it's not outside the local area and I were able to pick shows within, you know, an 8-hour drive, I don't even need to take leave for it. So I could take a 30-day vacation at the end of the year so long as my shows are around the base.
No, I think that's a really good point. Is like, yeah, there are a lot of setups sometimes that will either be your ability to succeed or not. I do think, and generally, again, this is how I feel about hustle culture as a total, is if you really want it, there are ways for you to make it happen. It is just not likely you are willing to do those things. Most people are not willing to make the sacrifice and hustle as hard as they need to with the cards they're dealt to get to where they want to be. For example, Kai Green commuting 2 hours on the subway to become an Olympian from the fucking projects. Like, can it be done? Yeah. Are most people going to do that? No.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, more people could afford actually to hustle harder. Just most people don't want to.
I do agree, right? I'm under no delusions that the reason why the vast majority of Americans, even when they're not from economically downtrodden areas, is education and the standard of being uncomfortable, right? I can argue with you all day in terms of that. I agree. Not enough people make themselves uncomfortable on purpose.
Yeah. I mean, why would they? Evolutionarily, it's not really what we want to do. So
it's how we got out of the food chain, right? Don't make yourself comfortable, make yourself the superior being.
Yeah.
But there is something to be said also about everything in moderation, right? And I guess that's really where it splits for me, is like, how did you know that your brand and your product was taking a hit and you were like, I got to cut some shit out? Like, at what point were you like, oh, now I see it?
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by Nirvana Super. Nirvana Super is HMB-infused water formulated by Dr. Naji, who is one of the lead medical research scientists at Vanderbilt University. Originally used to help stop muscle wasting in trauma victims as well as disease-ridden patients, this recovery tool boasts benefits like faster muscle recovery, increased joint health, a rise in physical endurance capabilities during exercising, and can even slow the appearance of aging. It also comes in some seriously good flavors and multiple delivery methods. So if you want to figure out how HMB can help you today, visit feelsuper.com and use Natty at checkout to save.
I often feel like you ask me these questions like you pose them as if like there is a definitive moment in time.
No, there's not. I want to be very clear. There's definitely not. But think on it.
I feel like sometimes when I do listen to people, they're always like super in tune with their feelings. Maybe that's just it. Maybe I'm just not in touch with my feelings ever. Like,
maybe that.
I've just been uncomfortable for so long, I don't realize when I'm uncomfortable. It's like, hey, did you realize you're drowning? No.
You know,
shit's on fire.
I'm going to say this, and I'm going to tell everybody out there, I did not prime her for this question. Everything that we talk about here is off the cuff, on the fly. Do you feel that maybe this hustle culture argument that, and I'm not saying it's right, wrong, or indifferent, but the way that you live your personality and your philosophy is so that you don't have to pause long enough to process those things?
I had a therapist once tell me that apathy is my defense mechanism. I just choose not to feel shit so I can continue to do work. Like, when I was go-go dancing, one of my go-go dancers told me, Layla, I think that I could sleep with your fiance and the very next day you'd say, okay, we got to go to work. Like, I'm just
dude, I could totally fucking see that. I totally see that.
Yeah, like, okay, we'll deal with this later. We have shit to do.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm just like that. Is that I'm not like saying like, pat myself on the back, like that's a good way to be. But yeah, I've been clocked for that many times. Like, I am very much that personality type. Yes, I am extremely hard on myself too. Like I said, I do feel like I have to be forever producing and being productive. Otherwise, what's the point of being alive? You know, I don't enjoy relaxing. I don't like to have fun. Like, those things are very few and far between. Like, you know, they say like, balance is everything.
Yeah.
I do believe, for those of you that can't see me, I'm holding my hands up like what is that called? A scale?
Yes.
So
scales of justice.
Everything. But what people, I think, don't realize is it's not always balanced the way we think of balance. Like, you decide where the fulcrum is. Mine is like this.
Yeah.
I need to do this much work and this much play. That's where my balance is. My fulcrum's right here, you know?
Yeah.
And I forgot the question.
No. You answered it perfectly, which was, is it a defense mechanism to basically not process feelings?
Just to bypass how I'm feeling or thinking that I'm doing too much or not letting myself take a break? Is that?
Yeah, basically not taking that break. Do you believe that that's you going, if I rest long enough, I'm going to have to process X, Y, Z from whether it be in the future, you know, or in the past. And I don't want to do that. I'd rather just try to produce value with the time I have.
So I don't quite think that's it, because I do spend a good amount of time self-reflecting and like flipping through shit, but maybe I'm not very good at that. Like, maybe I'm not productive when I do that. Maybe I put a lot of work into it, but I don't get results from it because I'm not good at it. And then even then, I feel like more or less I can recognize if something isn't working, but do I I'll just stop doing it and do something else.
Right. It's not a pivot point for you. It's like, this isn't producing, I'm out of here.
Yeah. Fuck.
And again, there is no right or wrong answer. I don't have a thing that at the end I'm going to go, gotcha, or like, see, told you. It's not like that.
I think what I've realized recently, and I don't know if this is going to be answering the question or not at all, is like I have always said that you really have to stick to. God, I hate the phrase like your true self or whatever. Like live your
Sure.
truth, right? That kind of
Live your
shit.
truth, man. Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants and all that.
Unfortunately, I think for me, I'm very much that type of person. Like,
Sure.
I never followed a fucking script. Like, I don't have any kids. I didn't live in the dorms. I never went to any dances. I've never been engaged or married. Like, I didn't follow a script. And for the first time, I'm trying to do some scripty person networking type shit
Mhm.
in a caloric deficit. So
Mhm.
it's like I don't even really have resources to do anyway, and I don't like doing, and it's fucking killing me.
Yeah.
So I think that's the third time I've said this on this episode. So let's not talk about that anymore.
Hey, man, why not? This is real. Like, I think,
feelings. I don't
dude.
want to talk about feelings anymore.
Well, I made a post a while ago, right, about this, where it was like I needed to get back to my. I said that I bring her up a lot, but I said this to Danny, my wife, where I was yesterday even. I was like, dude, after I don't have a bodybuilding show and I don't have to work out for a timeline. I fell in love with the gym again, where I realized for like a year,
that's a
I
good
was
way.
in limbo, where I'm like, I know why I'm doing this, but I'm doing it right now so that everybody will leave me the fuck alone. It's my time. But was I enjoying it? I don't know. I think I was waiting. I wanted it to be longer so that everyone would leave me alone for longer. I didn't want it to be longer because I was enjoying the pump and enjoying breaking a ceiling that I didn't think I could lift. And now going back into powerlifting and being like, I'm going to compete in December, but if I'm not ready, I'll push the meet. And this is a new sport for me, and I'm not the best at it. I'm good. I'm not great yet. You know, I think I'm right around a 400 dot score, which people would consider the beginning of elite level lifters, but it's not like I'm blowing out world records every time I touch a platform. So I was just telling my wife, like, I'm falling in love with it again, where it's like I want to be here, and now it's the best part. It's always been the best part of my day. Mm-hmm. Now it's like not even close to the rest of my day. It's awesome. Mm-hmm. And for me, when I was doing that hustle culture, it was like, how am I supposed to fucking schedule this? Like, what world do I have all of this time to do these things? And like you said, it took away from the finished product of like, okay, when I'm done with this, what am I going to leave behind other than just, well, I did the same thing that I've been doing for 10 years. This kind of gives me a thing where it's like, last week you couldn't do this, and this week you're going to do it, and then you do it, and now the ceiling is forever lifted. And, you know, the reason that I kind of went into that was just, I had to sit down and do some self-reflection where I was like, man, even when I started liking it again, I didn't want to admit that. I wasn't going to sit down and be like, well, the last 10 weeks, I didn't like being in the gym. It just was a thing that was always on my schedule. And I had to sit down and break until I could sit down enough and go, oh, I'm in much better spirits today because I enjoyed being in there, as opposed to just, I'm only in there as a me time so everybody leaves me alone. Mm-hmm. So I would argue too, to your point, like the script of even when you find the thing you like, sometimes these opportunities come up that just they rapid fire at you, and you think you have to take advantage of all of them. And you lose the point of just, why did I want these things to come my way in the first place? And do other people want to ingest this product now that I'm producing? Because I want to be proud of it in the end. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So
I don't know if this is helpful or applicable to your life anymore, but what I've heard you should do is like, if opportunities are coming your way, you're supposed to imagine it as if you have received this opportunity hundreds of times. Would you take it? You know what I mean? Like, it's not like just this like one-time glimmery shiny opportunity that you think you have to take because it's never going to come by again. Like, for example, this is a piss poor example, but like, as a woman, if dudes are just throwing themselves at you, you're just going to pick the best one. You're not just
you say that's a piss poor example, but there are a lot of people that do that shit.
Be fucking choosy about the opportunities you take on, because otherwise you are not, it's not the right thing for you to be doing. So imagine if you got this opportunity all the time. Like, is it something you would just be like, yeah, nah, I don't want to do? For example, like, I was getting asked, when I first started my Instagram, I was getting asked to do films that had a lot of nudity in them. And I was like, I don't know, it'd be nice to be a star. And it's like, No, I don't want to do that. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
So,
listen, respect for you for saying no. A lot of people would see that contract and just get blinded by the light and be like, well, this is how, fucking Kate Winslet started, where she showed her tits in fucking Titanic. And then when she wanted to do other serious roles, people were like mocking her for it. I'm like, dude, she's a great actress. Like, I think
good. I hate when people do that.
that's
Like,
what I was gonna say, man.
look at something that you did once and like forever tarnish you. No, fuck you. If she becomes a great actress, like, respect that for what it is. That's
perfect example would be Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson, where she had the wardrobe malfunction, right?
Oh yeah.
He got to go on and still be a superstar. Her tour was canceled. She had a movie documentary coming out. They canceled, and all of her record labels and her sponsors all dropped her. It's like, dude, she stood there while a dude ripped that off of her. Like, why is she being punished for something that really wasn't her problem? Like,
I never knew that. That's
yeah, and not only that, dude, it's
weird.
a tit. It's a tit. Who cares?
Also, just who cares anyway?
And so I've always hated that, where it's like, I think that there are certain genders, certain people, certain industries that don't get enough agency when it comes to hustle culture. When it's like, dude, that was her making massive amounts of money in a blockbuster film with James Cameron. Okay, if the script calls for her to be something else in the next movie and you don't like her as an actress, that's okay. But you can't judge her. I don't understand why then dudes don't get judged based on their shitty movie choice. Like, you ever see a superstar in a fucking C-list movie, but then he's in like John Wick and you're like, well, I mean, it's okay. Why? He made a shitty role choice over there. Why didn't you judge him the same way? And like, I don't think hustle culture judges us evenly. You know what I mean? I hate that part about it too.
No, definitely. Man, that's a really good like subtopic, like how hustle culture applies differently to.
No, do it. We got time. I'm here to talk to you. My kids are with their mom eating dinner. I'm good.
Sure. I mean, I guess the one thing I wanted to be sure to say before we launch into all that is like, the thing about hustle culture that I like is I feel like this exists for a group of people that are like anti-hedonists, like, this is our thing. We want to move. We want to be the people that run the world. Like, somebody's going to have to fucking run this shit. Like, and then there's the other people out there that are celebrating like body positivity and eating Cheez-Its. Like, nobody's pissed off about that. Why is nobody getting on their, I mean, people are getting on their case about it, but you know what I mean? Like, that is definitely unhealthy.
Yeah, I guess to play
the argument, like,
just to play devil's advocate on that, and like I said, now I've kind of come into terms because I've talked to people that don't have the aspirations we do because I'm trying to understand. And the counter argument to that is always going to be, right, it's okay. It's your life. You only get one of it. And so we're saying you got to do something you love. You got to produce. You got to have fun with the stuff that other people think is uncomfortable, because that's where we find our fun.
Yeah, don't let people tear you to shreds for being an obsessed piece of shit or like a work or a power horse. Like, that is also okay. It's rare.
Oh, I 100% agree with you that it shouldn't be just because you're an overproducer that people think you're a piece of shit. But at the same time, the counter argument becomes, right, it's okay to also just be a mediocre guy who runs the books at like a mid-tier finance company.
It sure is. And I'm glad you said that, because what I think a lot of people don't understand about my Instagram is like, if you want to sit in your room and make shadow puppets all day, I am comfortable with that. But if you come across one of my posts as the dude that makes shadow puppets all day and you get upset, none of my posts ever target anyone personally. But if you take it personally, maybe you should. Because it's a part of you that you're actually unhappy with, that you're not reconciling. And that's where like the hustle culture comes in, is I send out a message, and if that message resonates with you, it's because it's actually a part of you. If you're genuinely, truly comfortable with who you are, you're going to read my shit and be like, yeah, it doesn't apply to me. Or like, I'm happy. I'm fat and I'm happy. Yeah. I'm married with a picket fence. That's cool. She's doing her thing. Like, I'm happy.
I think they could apply your philosophies to other stuff in their life, even if they're not a fitness person. Like, that's what I never understood, is why. That's why Arnold Schwarzenegger is who he is, right? The dude for 3 decades was on a bender of success, minus the bastard kid with his maid and all that. But anyway, the 3 decades that this dude was just married to Kennedy, movie star, Mr. Olympia, became the governor of a state he couldn't pronounce, right? So we have this guy who is essentially a figurehead for success. And people don't need to resonate with his bodybuilding career to know that hustle took time and effort. And I don't understand why hustle culture nowadays can't be that someone comes to Layla's page and goes, I'm not into fitness and I don't understand her abrasiveness, but I do understand her ability to take something that was less than and make it greater, right? I just don't understand why if hustle culture is what it is, that it also has to be derogatory, right? That if you're not in my lane of this culture, then fuck you. You know what I mean?
I think it's like 2 things. There are 2 analogies I could use here. One is like the traffic analogy, where it's like anyone that drives slower than you is dumb or something, and anyone who drives faster than you is an asshole. Because human beings are actually competitive. And I think so for example, like if I had a page that was talking about like partying all the time, rosé all day, like nobody's going to come to my page and feel bad, because nobody feels bad about not partying hard enough, but people deep down do actually feel bad about not working hard enough because they know they should be. And that's where I feel like I come in. Like that's where I get under people's skin without them really realizing it, is like they feel like it's abrasive because I'm actually tapping at a part of them that they feel like they are inadequate about. That's my theory.
I don't think there's any, I don't think you're off base. I think that anybody who gets uncomfortable with somebody that's not really talking to them, but about something that they said. But you've also said before something that's very true that I agree with 100%, which is, especially as it relates to people who are just sitting making shadow puppets, they want confrontation. The easiest way to do that is online. I would argue everything you just said ties into this. If human beings are competitive, right, and it is within our nature to want to produce for the greater good, but we live in a society where we're so closely related to one another that you are very seriously judged on your production. If you are lazy and you can't produce physical work, then you must produce thought, right? You must produce argument. You must produce the intelligence side of things, which is less than intelligent most of the time. And so people want to then prove their worth by connecting with the echo chamber around them, going, there's a lot of people who believe what I believe, and so I'm going to rally us together. Except it never fucking happens. The people who are typing those things online just, it never winds up, well, minus on January 6th, of course, but you know.
Yeah. That reminds me of, I can't remember, it was a comedian that said, it might have been like Mark Norman or something. People get upset because they lack a personality. So it's that kind of thing. It's like, they're not doing the thing they're supposed to be doing over here, so let's just substitute with this, you know?
Bro, here's the perfect, very topical segue that you will not understand at all because you don't like football and you don't like pop music. But
I don't like anything. Okay.
I'm going to say this.
Britney Spears today, actually.
No,
okay.
oh, dude,
I just said that on record.
Her Instagram is weird.
I don't follow her on Instagram.
Don't.
I'm a single track slayer. I just pop on a track.
I gotta say this. I watched the documentary about her conservatorship, and I was like, man, this girl is getting taken advantage of. And clearly she was. But they ended the conservatorship, and then her shit got real weird. And I was like, maybe one person should be kind of looking after her, because this doesn't look very healthy, man. But anyway.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by NutraBio. NutraBio, with no compromise since 1996, they never hide behind proprietary blends and always tout transparent labels. With industry-leading formulations, all with clinical dosages of ingredients and products spanning from bodybuilders to athletes to just general health clients, NutraBio has exactly what you need to take your goals to the next level. Hit up NutraBio.com and use code word NATTY at checkout to save.
I don't know. I'm from afar, and I don't know jack shit really about what's going on in her life. I think the fame probably drove her nuts.
Well, because they were pushing her to it. Basically, during the later portions of her life, she was making hundreds of millions of dollars, and her conservators were taking all of it. And so she wasn't allowed to have friends. She wasn't allowed to go out. And they said the conservatorship was because she was mentally ill. But she wasn't too mentally ill to go on 6 world tours and make $400 million. So the thing then becomes, okay, hustle culture created a conservatorship for this person where her parents' hustle culture was keep this girl in bondage because she's our meal ticket. But because of that, they broke her personality and she's fucking crazy. Like,
I mean, yeah, how would that not, you turned your daughter into a fucking lab rat.
and I mean,
Experiment went wrong.
from like 14 to 16.
Especially from a young age, man. I feel like those young kids that get into acting, singing, that lifestyle, young, woof.
What are you talking about? Child actors have the best lives. They're super happy.
Woof.
No, they're not.
So I derailed you. Do you remember what you
No,
were
yeah, believe me, I always have 6 rails in my head.
always
So
remember.
what I was going to say is this. The Chiefs, one of their defensive linemen right now, Kelsey, is dating Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift has been coming to his games, and the NFL Instagram, the NFL channel, Red Zone, and the games themselves continuously zoom in on. And I want to say this. I don't know how real the photo was, but there was a photo of someone who paused the game on the NFL Network. And I guess this is like a Taylor Swift thing where she like makes the heart with her hands. The little tracking thing to tell you where you were in the game was heart hands. And they were like, this is fucking out of control. I don't give a shit about Taylor Swift. Fuck this girl. I wish they did. And I'm like, dude, it's not her fault that she's dating this guy and showing up and it is like showing her support for her boyfriend. It's everyone else that wants to take advantage of the fact that she's there and extend basically the coverage on the fact that you don't have to like football. You just have to like Taylor Swift and then you can watch football. That's not really her problem. So I posted on Instagram and Facebook, dude, rethink this Taylor Swift hate. This is a girl who's dating a guy, showing up, and the videos are of her with his parents and his friends in a private booth way up on the top of the stadium. And they keep zooming in on it, showing what she's wearing, talking about her tour. I'm like, she doesn't even know they're doing that. And you're like, I fucking hate this girl. Dude, it's not her fault. Leave her alone, kind of. Like, talk to the NFL Network and tell Roger Goodell, the commissioner, I want to watch football. I don't want you to keep zooming in on what celebrities are in the crowd.
Yeah.
And in the comments section was a bunch of people who turned it political by comment number 3. And I'm like, dude, if you think this argument about football and pop music is directly tied into how the federal government works, we're not the same people. Like, I get it. There is a weird political thing with, and it's not even weird. She has political stances. She's a person. She's allowed to have them, and you're allowed to disagree with her. But to then say that because she's dating someone in the NFL, if the NFL mentions Taylor Swift, that's them taking a political, dude, shut the fuck up. Like, why would you take it there? And that's what I wanted to say when you said there's people in the comment section that instantly outrage is their thing. They just want to get their point across and they will backdoor it in no matter what you're talking about. I fucking hate that. I hate it. It's the worst.
It is.
And I know
it is.
You are the person who has to defend the butt of all of that shit because you're a woman who happens to have very staunch stances on things. And people feel that they have to tell you how you're wrong.
Staunch stances on things that women aren't supposed to have staunch stances about, like hustle culture. Like that, I'm just not allowed to do that, apparently.
I have to say, I have to thank my mom. And she listens to these episodes, by the way, because 10 minutes after every episode comes out, she always texts me.
I've always wanted to do this. Hi, Mom. Except it's not my mom, because my mom would never watch this, because my mom doesn't support what I do.
My mom has always supported what I do. Love you, Mom.
Thanks, Mom.
She was, like I said, college professor, has a doctorate in marketing and advertising. I would sit in the back of her classes when I was a kid if there was nobody to watch me. And her argument was always the same. If you need something, if you want to address an adult, you have to talk like an adult. You have to, and which, by the way, is why I'm a public speaker, is because I don't say ums. There's no uhs. I know what I want to say.
Out so good.
But what I want to say about that is now all of my role models after her have always been strong women. I've always believed in the agency of equity, where if you're a man or a woman and you are producing something of value, I don't care if you walk in and you have what's between your legs, or if you consider there to be nothing between your legs and you're a pronouner, I don't care. As long as you have the respect for everybody else in the room and you are here to produce something in a positive manner. I hate when everybody has an argument about something else, where it's like, especially right now in the political atmosphere where it's left versus right. And I'm like, dude, the amount of people that you deal with on a daily basis where if they didn't make that their personality, you would never know they believe those things. I don't understand when we got here where it's like, now we're going to attack each other.
Yeah.
Why?
Like when like a lot of the abortion laws got, I don't know what to call it, repealed or whatever.
Well, it wasn't codified. They didn't codify Roe v. Wade. They repealed any protections for abortion services.
Okay.
Yeah.
So obviously I was really loud about that.
As you should be.
And all these dudes are like, it's killing babies, whatever. And I wanted to be like, how many of the OnlyFans girls you watch are actually pro-choice? But they just
Do you want to know how many of them, if it really affected them, would become pro-choice even for just a single day?
It's that thing we talked about with the kids. Like, once it happens to you, like, nobody is positioning themselves of that being their reality. Like, yeah, it's really easy to prognosticate in the absence of reality. Like, that's not the right thing to do. Yeah, when it happens to you, motherfucker.
They always say, right? Hindsight's 20/20. And the applicability of things, which, like I said, I have to thank my mom for this too. I now know, having seen what she went through, my dad is an immigrant who came here without speaking any English and now has multiple master's degrees and does very well for himself and adopted me when I was very young.
Did he hustle? Was that hustling? Sorry.
No, you're right. What I'm saying you're absolutely right in the sense of the disagreements that we go through as it relates to that type of thing shouldn't stop us from being able to coexist in those things. And whether the lane is the same or not, appreciating someone's value as they produced it for someone else is why I watch documentaries about subjects that I don't give two fucks about. I've watched bowling documentaries, documentaries on darts. I want to see someone who likes their shit so much that they're obsessed with it. I identify with that. I don't need to see it the same way you do. I don't.
Yeah.
So,
do you think it's fair to say we're both obsessive? Like, we have to be, right? Like,
100%.
Anybody who actually succeeds in the sport is obsessive. Like,
first thing I did when I decided I wanted to power lift in December is look up the world record deadlift. No one should do that. No one should go, I'm in my second meet, how can I break a world record? That's obsessive compulsive shit, and it's not healthy at all. However,
but he's pro that and anti-hustle culture. What?
Well, because I've said this. I said this to my mom, my dad, my wife. I don't know that I'm going to program that into my children because I have seen unhealthy reliances on things that I do in a daily basis that I believe can be tweaked so that you have a healthy relationship with production, what you're producing, right? And how hard you are on yourself. I do believe that. And I have a very unhealthy relationship with needing to compete. And I've since been able to tamp that back, and I want other people to succeed. That's the coach side of me that allowed me to do that. And I know your argument is going to be, but that's how you became good, right?
And I'm not saying you couldn't have done it another way, but it worked, didn't it? The result.
Which is my counter argument to myself. Would I be as good at what I do and be on this magazine cover and be on this poster and, have the degrees over on this wall if I didn't have that competitive nature? The answer is probably no, because I know plenty of people who are just fine with not competing at all. But there is a middle ground, and I don't know what it is yet, but there are certain aspects of that need to win and compete that I really would like to program out of how I raise my children. I don't think 100% of it is healthy. I don't. So if you had kids, I'm assuming that you wouldn't want to program that out, and would you want them to be carbon copies of you?
I am so far removed from the idea of having kids, I can't even fathom answering this question.
Okay, think of it like this. If you looked at an example of what would be considered successful in terms of people, do you think that it would be if the parent was a hyper producer and was generally productive in society, that the children should be carbon copies of their parents. Do you believe your parents, I'll say that, do you believe your mom was a version of you?
Yeah.
Do you like that you are a copy of her?
In this regard, yes. I value very much how hard she taught me how to work, but she didn't actually teach me. I just learned it by watching her. Like I've told you before, foreign mom, like, you don't sit down. There's always chores. You can do your dishes. Like, you just move, you go. And I value that because I see myself produce more than other people. And I don't even pass people in the left lane. I fucking lap people. Like,
yeah.
And just because how I was raised, like, that's just what I do now. And part of, I guess, in a very like meta roundabout way, the part of hustle culture I don't like is if you're the person doing it, you might often only be the person doing it. You might often only be the only person doing it.
Yeah.
And then you go into work and nobody else is working as hard as you and you get resentful.
Okay.
You wonder why you're working so fucking hard.
Is there any bit of you that even when it was happening when you were younger that resented your parents for doing it?
I don't think so. I honestly don't. But I think I'm a bad person to ask because I wasn't close to either of them. So it's not like I had this.
No, that's a very valid point. Is because of that, right?
Hey, I just now fucked up because both my parents worked too hard. There it is. No, honestly, we never saw my dad because he always worked. And if we were with him, it's because he took us to his work. That's pretty much all we did. And then my mom worked all the time.
Which,
holy
again,
shit. Whoa.
I don't want to say that that's right, wrong, and different. It's not a bad thing. It taught us. I just said I was with my mom in college classes when I was 8, 9 years old. But there is a counter argument there, right? If you did see children that usually are brought up to have relatively normal social skills, right? It's because they were able to emulate them, whereas you were able to emulate the other side. I know what not a healthy work ethic, but an absolute obsession of a work ethic is like, and that makes me a better person. I'm not saying it doesn't, but there is a downside to that where if now I do have kids, I don't want to teach them that when you have kids, you just now have to work so hard that you can't be a parent. And I think that we're getting into a point in our organized society where it's almost becoming a necessity, where you either learn to do that and you kind of keep your head above water like this, or you don't, and you're just constantly anxious and you don't have any money and you know what I mean? Like, sure, you can be there for your kids, but you're underproducing to the point where is there really ever going to be any time where you enjoy that time, that you're not in this like anxious state of what the fuck am I going to do? You know what I mean?
I mean, I do feel like between the two options, if you become a person that is super self-efficient and like you hustle with your money, it does lend itself to an ease of living that you otherwise won't have. You know what I mean? Like it's like something I thought of earlier is the whole, you can work really hard, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're being productive. Like, honestly, the hustle culture of like dudes that I go to work all day and I'm up at dawn, then I come home, and it doesn't mean you're providing for a family. You're just working really hard. Like, yeah, you might be hustling, but like, are you saving money, or do you spend money on a 6-pack every night? Like, are you actually reaping the benefits of how hard you're hustling? Because if you're not, that just looks stupid to me. And then I think to what you're saying, yes, I turned out very lopsided. Whereas if you don't pummel your children with this idea that they have to continuously work, they'll become more well-rounded individuals, because there's other parts of life like getting in touch with your emotions and knowing how to respond to people and I missed all that shit.
Yeah.
Did I ever tell you my mom called me when I was 31? She's like, I wish I had asked you how your day at school was. And I was like, oh, hi, Mom, I'm 31. I don't, it's a little late for that.
But that's the thing, right? We say we only get one life. And this is why I say, to round this out, that I'm anti-hustle culture. Listen, if I was anti 100% hustle culture, I wouldn't have what I have. I wouldn't be where I am. I had a full-time job with bodybuilding when I was still full-time in the military. To say that I'm anti-hustle culture would be a almost a slap in the face to all the stuff that came my way for being pro hustle. But at the same time, as I got older, I realized I probably swung too far in either direction, where there were times when I was relaxing too much and times when I was working too much. And finding a happy medium takes time, and you're not always going to be in the happy medium. But I don't ever want to call my kid, I don't want to call Archer up when he's 31 and be like, I wish I asked you how your day went. I don't want to call up my son Ellis and be like, did you even really like playing soccer when you were a kid? Did you want to do that? Because there will be no time where we could go back and do those things.
Ultimately, don't force feed anybody anything they're not responding to. And if your kid becomes an obsessive piece of shit like you, if it makes him happy, support it,
Yeah. And which, by the way, like I said, my parents were always very good about. My dad flew to Italy to see me win my first international contest. My mother and my father and my stepmother were all at my first amateur Olympia win. My friends and bosses at the gym that I work out of flew to the last Olympia to see me compete. My wife has been to all but 2 of my shows. I think that that's a constant in my life, that the hustle culture I have, and we can, really, the hustle culture I have is because I want those people who always did support me to be proud of it, where they're like, he really did make the most of it, and I'm proud of what he made out of it. Whereas some people's hustle culture, and I'm going to ask you to round out the podcast, is your hustle culture more that or the opposite of, I don't fucking need anybody's approval, I'm doing this because I'm going to hustle the way I like to do it?
As much as I would love to say it's for me, what I've realized, honestly, in the past handful of months, I don't do this for me. I do it for other people. I honestly do. And if that's like deeply psychological, that I need to prove to my mom that my athletic ability is a version of success, maybe that's why I feel like I have to be successful, because I didn't become the doctor or the lawyer. This is the thing I really want to do and like to do, and I'm good at it. But until I have a title, what does it actually mean to anybody,
Deep imposter syndrome shit, man. I have it too all the time. I mean, listen, anyone who actually uses THC or marijuana will be the first to tell you there are some times when you're in the rabbit hole that you're looking around like, is any of this real? Where I come up here to my office in this seat and I'll sit here and think of all these cool stories that I have and all these fun places I've been, and I look around and I'm like, dude, if a fire burned all this tomorrow, I would have just the memories, but that'd be it. Like, there's no. The house that I bought on my training is why I'm so against moving out of it. Is because it's a embodiment of the fact that I did at least make it enough where I put a roof over my head, and for a decade I've been putting food in my family's mouth with fitness. That's hustle culture, right? But as I get older, I'm like,
accolades. You got fucking accolades. You earned it. You take that with you.
But I'll be honest, man, meeting people and talking to people like you and having those memories about stuff like this and my life experience, I don't know, man. As I get older, it just fucking means more. It means more than some trophies and shit. It means more than a title. But you're right. You're 100% right that if I did this for those 10 years and I wasn't 3-time Mr. Natural Olympia, I don't know that I would identify with bodybuilding the way I do. I know I love it. I know I love fitness. But would I identify with bodybuilding if I wasn't a little bit pro hustle culture and really needed those titles? No, because nothing is going to get you up at 4:30 in the morning to do 60 minutes worth of cardio, because it doesn't mean that much. That's impossible. No one does that. You can't do that, right? I'm not going to starve slowly over the course of 8 months so that I could get on stage and be like, yeah, this doesn't really fucking matter. You know what I mean? Like, you do need to be a little bit obsessed. So I guess what Layla and I are trying to say is this. Whatever your definition of hustle culture is, right? However you want to portray yourself. At the end of the day, whether you're sober or blitzkrieged off that blunt you hit outside before you came in when you kissed your kids goodnight, understand this. In the twilight of our lives, nobody ever remembers how much time you spent working overtime, except the ones that are closest to you. So if you are working overtime and your hustle culture is trying to influence those around you, make sure that the influence is a positive one and you create 2 bodybuilders who run whatever they consider their best lives to be, as opposed to I'm just running away from something, right? You think that would be an apt way to end this, Layla?
I would say, this is what I like and I'm keeping it, and if you don't like it, eat another Cheez-It and shut the fuck up.
That's right. So grab your Cheez-Its and be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and be sure to listen to the United States of America wherever you get your podcast. On behalf of Layla and myself, I want to say thanks so much for listening. Again, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and we'll see you next time on the United States of America.
Rosé all day.